On today's episode, is copying from your neighbor a bad thing? I'm Jeremy Fisher. This is The Awakening. The thin black plastic minute hand of the clock above the whiteboard moved down to the next notch. There was a soft clicking sound every time the minute hand moved. I couldn't help but notice the sound as it happened minute after minute. I was 8 years old and had my arms folded on the desk. My neck was strained from looking up and watching the clock minutes tick by. My buddy Jordan was in the room with me. It was my first time in detention. It felt strange to be there. In my mind, I hadn't actually done anything wrong. It was Jordan who had decided to look over my shoulder during our social studies test and copy my work. Jordan didn't get a chance to study for the test, and instead of getting a failing grade, he decided to look at my answers. Jordan was my friend, and I didn't want him to fail, so I lowered my arm and lifted the page so he could see. Unfortunately, our teacher didn't seem to think this was a great idea because she grabbed my paper along with Jordan's, refused to let us continue taking the test, and sent us straight to detention. All of us at one point or another learned that copying from our neighbor in school is forbidden. We were taught that we should put in the work to solve the problems or answer the question based on our own experience with the learning material and not rely on someone else's experience. If we didn't comply with that rule, we would risk being penalized, most severely. After all, the foundation of the educational system is to come up with your own thoughts and ideas for answering questions to problems, right? Well, higher education maybe, but elementary, middle school, and most of high school is actually about reading literature, history, and formulas and coming up with the same answer that you would get as your neighbor, just making sure you don't get it from them. This concept never really rang true to me in school. If the goal of acing a test is to have the right answers, who cares if I get the answer from the teacher, the book, or my neighbor? Don't get me wrong, I didn't cheat my way through school and wouldn't recommend that anyone else does. But in the real world, the side hustle or business world, is there something wrong with letting someone else go through the hard work and experience of starting and growing and vetting an idea and then learning from them and their failures? Is there a problem with not doing something they've done wrong and copying something they've done right? Well, actually, that's exactly what most successful businesses do. Ray Kroc, the businessman that brought the McDonald's franchise to the world, often gets credited for basically inventing the fast food model. But Ray Kroc didn't invent the model. Who did? Well, you probably think I'm going to say the McDonald's brothers, who were the original founders of McDonald's. But they didn't invent the model either. The restaurant White Castle had been utilizing the assembly line style fast food model for nearly 2 decades before McDonald's became known for it. McDonald's didn't become the McDonald's we know of today because they invented really anything. They became the McDonald's of today because lots and lots of other decisions, most notably their real estate positioning, was copied from other businesses. The real estate model that they chose was actually copied from convenience store models. Social media, through sites like MySpace, was actually around long before Facebook, but MySpace is gone. Facebook copied MySpace's platform, got rid of all the stuff that didn't work, added its own spin with exclusivity only allowing members initially with college email addresses, and that is one of the reasons why they're still around today. Online stores were around for many years before Amazon, and Amazon copied the online store model and made it better with fast delivery, user reviews, and rating systems. Now, other online stores like Walmart.com are actually copying the Amazon model, and it's working for them. Steve Jobs used to say that the PC was just a copy of the Apple computer, but Steve Jobs actually admittedly copied the idea of the mouse from Xerox. Businesses constantly copy each other. They even have a term for it. It's called best practices. Best practices are the strategies and tools that competitive businesses use every day. And it's not viewed as cutthroat to follow best practices. It's not unethical. It's actually a standard operating procedure. This is really important for you and I to understand because we were sort of brainwashed to think that copying is a really bad idea. Our teachers drilled into our brains that copying was bad, something that you get penalized for, even though, in a way, we just copied knowledge from them. Businesses that don't copy from other businesses seem to have a much, much lower chance of succeeding. Now, before there's a misunderstanding, let's clarify. There is a big difference between stealing and copying. Stealing is taking proprietary information that has not been openly given and using it for financial gain. Copying is learning from other businesses and applying what you've learned in your business. That's actually pretty much what we do when we read a nonfiction book. When we read a book like The Intelligent Investor, we get to read in maybe 5 hours what it took the successful investor and author Benjamin Graham 30 or more years to learn about investing. That kind of idea compression, where you can take decades of experience and condense it into a few hours, gives us huge leverage. If we read just 10 books a year that have the same decades of experience compressed into just a few hours, we can literally gain hundreds of years of experience in days. This is why so many successful people credit reading with their success. They're not crediting reading because the act of reading makes you smarter, though some studies would argue it does. The reason is compressing years of other people's experience into just hours and loading that into our brain gives us massive advantages over those that are out there just trying to figure it out. That's why listening to podcasts or audiobooks, basically information in audio form, puts you so far ahead of other people. So am I advocating doing a Control-C on your competitor's website and pasting their website copy into your own? No. But does another website have a tone, a style, a message that's really good? Is there a competitor that has a product with a feature that yours doesn't have, and you can come up with your own spin that would make your product just as competitive, if not more competitive? Once again, I'm left to rethink what we were taught in school. We know that the traditional education system was really good at teaching you how to be an employee, but it was really bad at teaching you how to start your own business. The nice thing about being an adult is that we don't have a teacher looking over our shoulder. Is copying from your neighbor something that you should be overly and extremely penalized for, as long as you're not stealing? And if we see that our neighbor has something figured out, is it unethical to peek over and see what kind of answers they've already worked to find? Most people running successful businesses today don't think so. But what about you? That's it for today's episode. You can find business and side hustle ideas at theawakening.com. If opportunity doesn't come knocking, let's build a door.